Welcome back everyone. I thought I'd return to Canada for our latest Urban Legends video. Canada is the second biggest country on Earth. That is a lot of land. There's a lot of land for some creepy, mysterious and unexplainable things to happen in. There was no way I was going to be able to fit all of them into one single video, so I'm back today with this. My name is Danny Burke and this is the top 10 scary Canadian Urban Legends part 2. Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Tunnel Monster of Cabbagetown. In August 1978, a man called Ernest had a run-in with a very strange creature in Toronto. He and his wife were raising kittens at the time and one of them escaped. While he was looking for the kitten, he stumbled into a nearby cave and he saw, in his own words, a living nightmare I'll never forget. Ernest described the monster as long and thin, almost like a monkey, 3 feet long, large teeth, weighing maybe 30 pounds with slate grey fur. He also said its eyes were orange and red and slanted. Before he even had time to process what was actually in front of him, the creature spoke to him. It said, "Go away, go away," in a sort of hissing voice. Then it scurried off down a long tunnel. Ernest was done at that point. He got out of there as fast as he could, shaking with fear. He never approached the media with his story. He was afraid people would think that he was drunk or even crazy. His story only reached the media when people began to leak it to the local newspaper. He only agreed to talk to them if his last name was hidden. The article contained this artist's rendition of the creature. It does look humanoid in nature, but also kind of out of proportion, as if it had been deformed by its years scuttling around in the Toronto sewers. Ever since then, people have reported seeing this tunnel monster still lurking down there in the shadows. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the Alien Base. In 2017, media outlets started reporting sightings of strange lights hovering over Lake Ontario. Within a few days, people were convinced this was proof of alien activity there. Conspiracy theorists believe that there is an alien base which causes these strange light patterns. These orbs of light have been seen flying in the general direction of a local power plant. Is there anything behind that? Perhaps. The story ended up reaching such a climax that the government was forced to issue a statement. They said that the Canadian Armed Forces were actually conducting training operations in the area, and those exercises may have caused this visual phenomenon. Of course, this has done little to quieten down the conspiracy theorists, who are now more certain than ever of the alien base beneath the lake. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Lemon Mine. Ever since the 1870s, people in Alberta have talked about the Lemon Mine, a rich gold mine that is somewhere out there in the Alberta Rockies. Nobody has been able to find it, but a geologist called Ron Stewart once claimed that he actually had. Skeptics always say there's no proof of the mine ever existing at all. According to legend, the mine was first discovered in 1870 when 2 prospectors, Frank Jack and Black Jack, stumbled across more gold in a cave than they had ever seen in their lives. Once their joy had subsided though, the men began to argue. They couldn't agree on whether to stay put at the mine or return to it in the spring. The argument escalated, and in a rage, Lemon grabbed an axe and murdered Blackjack as he slept. He was then consumed by guilt and wandered out into the hills, never able to find the mine again. Ever since then, nobody else has, and the only clues seem to lie in this murderous story. Coming in at the number 7 spot now, we have Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. This is the oldest remaining lighthouse on the Great Lakes and the second oldest in Canada. It was built in 1808 and guided ships for 150 years before being decommissioned in 1958. The first lighthouse keeper was a man called J.P. Raidmuller. He disappeared under mysterious circumstances on January 2nd, 1815. Now legend says that he was actually murdered by 2 soldiers who had been enjoying his home brew a bit too much. The killers dismembered him and buried his body in a few graves near the lighthouse. The brutal death and lack of justice is said to have made this man into a ghost. The story seems like many other ghost stories, but it does seem to have a little bit of physical evidence tied to it, apparently. One former lighthouse keeper did report digging up a coffin in the area that I described before. He found a small coffin. Inside this small coffin was a single human jawbone. pretty grisly. Coming in at number 6 now, we have the Nana Bozo. This is an old story from Canadian folklore that originates from the Ojibwe tribe. The legend goes that long ago, a beautiful woman lived on the moon and watched over the earth. She was loved by all the people except 2 women who were very jealous of her. So one night they pushed her off the moon. The woman fell off the moon and fell into a lake. There the local tribe greeted her and built her a wigwam. Eventually they would come to her for advice. They named her Nokomis, and after a very long time the woman fell pregnant. She gave birth to a daughter, Winona. When the daughter grew up, she was courted by many of the braves and the surrounding tribes, but she denied all of them. One day Winona was walking in the forest when the wind decided that he wanted to steal her, so the wind swept her up and took her way out west to put her in a shack. Nokomis was devastated and tried to use all sorts of magic to bring her daughter back, but nothing worked. An eagle came down and told her what the wind had done to her daughter and said that the wind beat Winona. The tale continues for quite a while and follows Nokomis and her attempts to bring her daughter back, fighting through the elements and brutal tragedy. It's a legend that really has stood the test of time. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Lady in Red. The Lower Bay subway station in Toronto is famous among paranormal investigators. Many people have claimed that it's haunted, specifically by the Lady in Red. People say she has black holes for eyes. Her legs are nowhere to be seen as she just floats along the railway tracks. Even subway workers have reported seeing the Lady in Red. Some have said they experience unusually cold drafts blowing down the tracks in areas where cold drafts should be physically impossible. Of course, the next question is, who is the Lady in Red? Well, some believe that she was a woman who either jumped or was even pushed into the tracks when a train came by one day. Some of the subway staff believe that her ghost came to reside in the old pump room in the station and that she uses that as her base to head out and haunt the tracks. Despite the many stories about the Lady in Red, nobody has ever reported making actual contact with her and hearing the story from the horse's mouth. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the Sasquatch. I was surprised I didn't mention this one in the first video, but oh well, here we are now. The Sasquatch is said to be a large ape-like creature that lives along the west coast of British Columbia and also in northern California. It's often described as a bipedal creature, 2.75 meters in height and 360 kilograms in weight. They're covered in long dark hair and leave large 50-centimeter footprints that amount to most of the proof provided by believers. The sightings are not a recent thing either. Going way back to 1884, there was actually an article that described the capture of a half-man, half-beast near Yale, British Columbia. The people who found the creature described it as something of a gorilla type that also resembled a human covered in thick, glossy black hair. The creature was said to be found unconscious on some railway tracks. When it awoke, it was chased away by a group of men. In the years since then, evidence for the Sasquatch has amounted to first-hand accounts, some tracks, and bits of fur left behind on trees. Not enough for scientific confirmation, but enough to keep the legend alive. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Soldier's Tower. Students at the University of Toronto are well aware, I'm sure, of the many ghost tales that surround the almost 200-year-old establishment. One of the most famous is perhaps the Soldier's Tower. It's a memorial to the fallen Canadian soldiers of World War I. However, the bell tower is also known for a very grisly tale. Legend says that in the 1930s, a worker went up there to polish the bells at the very top of the tower. In a freak accident, he fell to his tragic death on the sidewalk directly under the tower. In the years since then, people claim they have seen the man's ghost repeat this tragedy over and over again, spiraling down and landing on the pavement before disappearing. I've saved the most disturbing part of this story till the very end. Some witnesses have described this apparition as having the flesh and blood of an actual human being before disappearing into the ground. I don't know why, but like a fleshy, bloody ghost is about 5 times scarier than a normal one. Gross. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the ROM. The Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto is over 100 years old and full of fascinating artifacts. Among the many ghostly inhabitants, 2 are always talked about. One of them is called Charles Trick Curley. He was the original director of the museum. People say they've seen him wearing a nightshirt and wandering through the East Asiatic collection. Some have reported strange occurrences in this gallery and have even seen the director himself. Why is he there? Does he have some sort of unfinished work perhaps? ghosts. It has to be something very serious to actually haunt your own place of work for eternity. The other ghost is said to be of a little girl called Celeste. Staff and visitors alike have reported seeing her tiny apparition sitting in the McLaughlin Planetarium watching the shows. The planetarium has now been closed for years since the last sightings, and nobody is quite sure if she still wanders among the seats there, waiting for one final show. And finally, number 1 now, we have the Bashful Monster. That's the sort of nickname given to this creature that some say is like the Canadian cousin of the Loch Ness Monster. For over a century, locals at Okanagan Lake in British Columbia have talked about a monster that they simply refer to as Ogopogo. There have been over 1,000 sightings. The Native Americans in the area often speak of the monster. They refer to it as Nataka, or the Lake Devil. According to their legend, when they arrived in the area, they had to try and distract the fearsome monster by throwing a small animal into the lake so that they could cross it. Descriptions of the creature are varied, but some people have said it looks like a frog from the front and a dinosaur from the back. Now, if you're struggling to mentally picture that, don't worry. I think everyone is. Only the people who have seen the Ogopogo will ever know what it truly looks like. And that is that, guys, at least for now. It has been quite a while since I've done an Urban Legends videos. I know we used to do like, I don't know, 15 a week or something crazy, and we've kind of cooled it off, but I thought this would be a good one to return to. Do you want us to get back on top of that? Do you have any other series that we've been doing recently that you want to see more of? Whatever it is, let me know. You know I am always ears. Thanks as always for watching, guys. My name is Danny Burke, and I will see you all in the next one.